Hello and welcome to another episode in our continuing series of Surroundscapes. Today we're going to be talking to a friend and a customer about some really cool projects that we've done together. I'll let him do a proper introduction, but first off, my name is Craig Cooper. I'm the North American Sales Manager at Bluesound Professional, and we'll be talking a lot more. So I'm going to pass it off to Jeremy, let him introduce himself and his company, and then we'll kind of walk through some cool projects.
Yeah, hi guys. Jeremy Irwin, founder of Aural HiFi here in Denver. Excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me in, Craig. This is it's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot, and I know the history, but I want to share a little bit. So, tell me, a little bit of your background and why you got into the. And I know this is a professional podcast, so it's going to be weird. We're going to talk a little bit of hi-fi. How did you transition from your early career and into this project?
So I spent 25 years building and running advertising agencies. Was a creative director for a long time, and this was hi-fi was a hobby. I've always had was always in music. Was electronic DJ and producer early on, and then produced a lot of music in the ad space. For TV, radio, and interactive, and so I always had a studio in a house that I had bought. The previous owner had left a pair of Infinity RS2s, and I had a wood shop and was looking for a wood project, and it was interesting. So I ended up stripping those down to bare wood and recapping the crossovers, and actually dyed them red, and built a finish booth so I could spray finish them. And I fell in love with the whole process, and along the way met so many people that were so passionate about hi-fi. That I started falling in love with making new friends and falling in love with these people, and just I got sucked in, and then started collecting Macintosh. Built a collection of all of the original Macintosh tube amps, which I think is was like 23 amps, something like that at the time. It was crazy. It was a crazy collection. So I posted a picture of that collection, which was in a 20-foot bookshelf, right? Like a library wall in my house. And the two best responses were, one was "you win," the second one was "drugs or guns."
Fair.
It was right. I was like, yeah, it's fair. It's I told my girlfriend that this was a 5-year plan to make this wall happen, and it took about 8 months. And that was, including a handful of flights to go buy amps in other parts of the country and haul them back in my carry-on.
Surprised that you sped up the process and just went all in. There's no reason to take it slow. Right.
So we as COVID hit, it kind of decimated my agency, because all my clients were large face-to-face organizations, large restaurant chains, and we had a large massage chain, a lash chain, a lot of large multi-unit either franchise systems or just national systems. And I know it's already been a seed. The idea was originally to go 100% vintage, and because what I was seeing out in the world, I mean, there were online sellers that were selling some vintage but not focused on it, and the shops that I had seen around the country, as I was in my travels, either looked like an old pawn shop or some old guy's basement kind of feel, and just a bunch of gear on racks, no brand, no presentation, no romance, didn't really feel like they loved it, although you knew they were into it, but the way they presented it, the way they displayed it wasn't, didn't convey that passion and that appreciation for it. So I felt like there was a space in the market, and that on top of that, because I had just kind of come into it, and I had experienced what it was like to try to figure these things out on my own. and trying to find a guide was really tough. I mean, I know, we've all experienced that hi-fi shop that, guys make you feel like you know nothing. That just, there's a level of hi-fi snobbery that's out there that it just really turned me off. And so we wanted to be as much of a guide as we could and be as inclusive as we could, and try to be that place that helped people get into the hobby. Because the number one thing I kept hearing from people is, I'm really into this. I'm really excited about it. I just don't know where to start, and I don't really, I'm a little bit nervous. I've been reading the forums, and I'm just more confused than when I started. And right, so can you help? And so we've tried to be that. And along that path, we've gone from 100% vintage during COVID out of a warehouse space into a 4,000 square foot showroom, and then another 2,000 square feet in the back of electronics restoration shop, wood shop, and shipping. And we're about to build out another 2,000 square feet upstairs into a little more traditional listening rooms, but with a non-traditional spin. And so that's kind of been our journey. We're now 4 years in, and now the new side eclipses the vintage and pre-owned, but not by a large margin. But because of our experience with horn speakers and tube amps, and that's really kind of where what gets me excited. High efficiency speakers and tube amps are what are the coolest part of this hobby, I think. So because of that, we get a lot of call from restaurants and hi-fi bars, and people want to do something like that, right? That where they've all seen Jazz Kisas, they've seen In Sheep's Clothing in LA, and they've seen Dante's, and they've seen the kind of anchor places, and they want to emulate that into the smaller market. And interestingly, it's happening in all kinds of small markets. I mean, we did one in Madison, right?
Mm-hmm.
So though we tend to be the natural choice for that, because we've done a lot of customization, where we've taken high-end vintage horn speakers and put our own twist on them. And they're exotic veneers and highly upgraded and custom crossovers, and we really kind of played with what was possible in that form factor. That's apparently struck a chord. And so we get a lot of call for people that start with, hey, I want to build a showpiece system in my retail space, restaurant, bar, coffee shop, wine bar, wine store even. And then from that, the next part of that conversation is always, okay, well, what about the rest of the space, right? And our answer, as a pat answer, is Bluesound. It's because we're going to be streaming probably 90% of the time anyway in those environments.
Yep.
It is so much more controllable. The install is so much cleaner. Everything is just so much easier. I mean, I'm obviously a power user. Like my house, I've got I think 30 pieces. So it's a natural thing for me. And when you're just trying to fill the space with sound, there's nothing better. I mean, I know a lot of, I hate to use the S word, a lot of people tend to go directly at Sonos, but the big benefit here is that Bluesound has a commercial side of their business that's designed for this application, which unfortunately so many people just grab a Play One and put it up in the corner and hope for the best, right? And and so it's a great fit.
Yeah, I love the designs that we've done. I've went to a couple. We'll show some pictures of it and definitely some layouts. But essentially, what we're doing is we're taking Jeremy's either vintage or new hi-fi, and that's the showcase piece. And whether you're sitting at the bar or shopping for some vintage clothing or whatever, you have the showpiece vintage. Maybe they're playing some vinyl, or maybe they're just doing streaming. And then we just basically send that to some ceiling speakers or surface mount speakers around the space. And it's right. We're a hi-fi company on Bluesound. We're a hi-fi company. We're, putting in a commercial enclosure. So I really enjoy those projects. They're kind of near and dear to me. I don't know. I'll give you a brief kind of history where that come from, and hopefully I don't botch it. You can kind of fix me up, touch up my version of this. But my boss Graham kind of got me into this space. He's a big fan of the hi-fi listening spaces, and essentially after the war in Japan, they nobody had a hi-fi system at their house, incomplete. So they would find a local place, establishment, coffee shop, what have you, and they would kind of all bring their individual components together, and they would sit down and listen to a great hi-fi all together and kind of share, which is nice. It's great. It's great to have them in our houses. I have a pretty decent setup here too. I'm not gonna lie, but it's also great especially when you're traveling, but also to meet some friends or family and sit down and enjoy some good food or snacks and listen to real high quality music. I love the places that I've went to, Dante's, whether it be in Miami or the garage sale vintages, which are fun. There's one in New York that we did. There's the one in Nashville that we've done. I haven't been to the one in Madison yet, but I enjoy the spaces we've been doing, and it's fun to work on them. And it'd be fun to see what the next phases of that are. I love the idea of taking hi-fi into hospitality, because there's not a reason why we're not, right? So we settle a lot in the industry. I came from the casino world. We settle a lot in the industry based on budget, but I think the budget and quality that scale is definitely coming back to kind of an equilibrium now. I don't think we would tolerate a 480p TV in a bar anymore. I don't think we'd really even tolerate a 780p or 720p, but yet we'll be very whatever works on the music type of thing. And I think more and more people are understanding that going out is not inexpensive. So I want an experience. I want to hear it. I want to feel it. I want to taste it. And I think the partners that we went to are thinking in the same shape and form.
How do I elevate that?
Yeah, exactly. I had another question. And again, this is probably not going to fit in the pro realm, but I really liked your stance on it. When we were talking about, I don't know, it was probably a few months ago, we were talking about how you were really interested in, kind of the younger, newer customer that doesn't, wants to have something nice, but doesn't have any idea how to even start there. Kind of explain that a little bit more, because I think, that's let's be honest, our industry, hi-fi tends to be, an older demographic that, unless younger demographics come in and say, ooh, I'm interested in this stuff, we're going to be left with no customers. So kind of expand on that a little bit more. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I mean, we're serving a kind of a unique demographic, at least at this stage in our, in the company. And it's a pretty wide swath. You'd expect that we'd have the guys in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that have money, that are passionate about hi-fi to be customers. With the vintage side, we get a lot of customers even in their 80s and 90s that grew up with this, that made Heath kits when they were a kid. That this is a lot of this is really more of a walk down memory lane. It's more nostalgic, and then they see this as kind of a museum, right? And they'll come hang out with us. But what's really exciting for me is how many people in their 20s and 30s come in. I mean, and are just like, yes, this is what I want. This resonates with me. And so many people are trying to take their TV out of the living room, and so what is that space for? How do I elevate that space? What can I do to complement my environment, but that doesn't detract? I mean, a TV arguably is a you walk into a living room, it's got a big TV, and it's not the most beautiful thing to be confronted with, but I would argue a lot of this equipment is. I mean, it is art, and then they recognize that, and they recognize that music is one of those one of the good things in life, right? It's one of those things that are transportative and they're not just brain sucking. It actually can feed your brain, feed your soul, right? It's an emotional exercise,
Exactly. I mean,
emotional experience, right?
sharing music is incredibly personal, or for me, like you're there's a lot of emotionality tied to it, and you're like, oh, I like this, this artist or this track or this genre, and you have friends over and you play music. That's it's a combined experience, and
Right.
it's a risk, right? Some of the music I play, some people might be like, oh, I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, that's one of my favorite things here is like because we're and my entire showroom is Bluesound. I've got 6 or 7 streamers, Bluesound streamers, all synced across my space, and we've got 9 systems running off those 6 or 7, actually 10 systems running those 6 or 7 streamers. But what that allows me to do is jump quickly from system to system because we're a wide open space. We're not a maze of listening rooms. I have to have it synced. Otherwise, you either have dead spots or you have a train wreck. And what's fun is that we're constantly adding to our showroom playlist by from the songs that people suggest, right? The reference tracks that people come in and say, "Hey, can I hear this?" And if it's something that sounds good to us, and sounds good, I mean, we're looking for that new drug that sounds great on a great system always, and so we're constantly adding these tracks to our playlist and then sharing that out with our customers, which is a lot of fun. But back to your question about those new people, the new guys getting into it. There is it's definitely growing. I mean, out of the vinyl renaissance, which is part of that, right? They're realizing that vinyl, it's not just about the tactile, the experience of having something physical, and the ritual of putting it on a turntable, but it can actually sound better if you have something that actually makes that reproduces sound well, rather than an all-in-one turntable with a speaker built in, right? Which is how so many of these people start. I have powered speakers and a turntable, and you start somewhere. But we are kind of that next step. Once they finally, this is something that I really love. Like, what is that next step system? And we try to have something for everybody. So for that $3,000 to $5,000 system, it's you can still have something really shockingly good. It might lack some of the nuance, as you get up into the 10, 20, 30, $100,000, but it's a great starting place, and it's so much better than a purple Bluetooth pill speaker, or your phone, which it still blows my mind how many people will sit around a campfire and somebody pulls out a phone and starts playing music. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at least there's music there, but we can do better. And once people hear that we can do better, it tends to be, if they're into music, it's over. They're hooked, right? And with Bluesound, it makes it so easy, right? We talk about, we call it hi-fi with Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun. What's interesting too with the streaming side, it's fun getting the new customers. The younger customers are comfortable with streaming already. They've never heard of a streamer typically. So educating on what a streamer actually is, because they're so used to streaming off their phone, via Bluetooth. And then on the other side of that spectrum, and the older customers, it's this technology. We have a technology gap, a technology hurdle that we got to get over. But it is so easy. If they have a smartphone, it's so easy, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to walk through one of the garage sales, kind of the design and the use case, to kind of tie it together. And then I got probably a couple more questions for you, but so essentially it's, Jeremy helped them sort out, and they might even have had some vintage vinyl speakers that they really wanted to use, or some vintage vinyl gear. He also, obviously.
Well, Craig, actually, if you want, I can just walk you. I can walk you through the story. Josh, the owner of Garage Sale, came in one day. Garage Sale is a vintage store that sells vintage clothing, records, lunch boxes, all the cool kitschy vintage stuff. And they typically have a bar in the center of their space. It's kind of the concept. It's a very cool concept. So you came in one day and said, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to see, I'd really like to put, something a little more, a little higher end into garage sale. Right now, we've just got Sonos speakers. I want something cool, right? What's that look like? And we started out with, I think we started out with a pair of KOHs and a Pioneer SX 1250, and a Bluesound streamer. But the great thing was in that process, and I think that first one was maybe when I first met you, Craig, because I reached out, and the process was amazing. Being able to just send you a floor plan and say, okay, here's where the 2-channel system is going to go. How do I fill the rest of the space? And you came back to me with a layout and a parts list and a budget. Like, okay, here's the coverage. Here's the heat map of what gets covered. Here are the pieces we need. Here are the ancillary equipment that you also need to purchase. And actually, you helped us find an installer for that. And
the customer actually knew the installer because they used their IT contractor. We could have used an AV contractor or anything like that, but it's very simple for the customer to install. So yeah, he can now. I was at the one in Nashville, and they'll listen to streaming music, but when they have a DJ come in, it's just plugged into our hub, which then feeds one, the hi-fi system, and two, the we're using PoE speakers in that case in the ceiling. Super easy. If they want a cloud management, they can manage it. They can call me and ask me to cloud manage it for them.
Well, the PoE thing is great too. I mean, the big leap, I think, in this is that it's all hardwired, right? And they're getting power and internet across across one cable, one network cable to each speaker. And so dropouts are much less of an issue potentially with the network. Wi-Fi is probably the worst thing you can do with a network of streaming speakers, because they're just asking for so many resources, especially when you're getting into like the Tidal and Qobuz or things that at that level, or in a commercial space when we're using something that's higher bitrate streams. It's asking for a lot of resources, and so having it wired makes it a whole lot more stable, which is really nice. But the process was just so easy, and for me, like I've never set up a PoE system before. Now we've done it enough times that we know what we're doing, but I didn't have to know it, which was great. You guys filled in that knowledge gap for me, and made it really, really simple. And so my whole team now is super confident. Anytime anybody comes in and says, "Hey, I'm opening a restaurant," like we know exactly what our process is. Right?
I'm glad you trusted me / us on the first one, because you were like, "Really, a data cable?" I'm like, "Yeah." Wait, that's gonna be loud enough? Yes, it will be plenty loud. Yeah. Now that was really fun. It's really fun to see where it's going. Well, I want to kind of wrap it up. I want you to tell me what we're kind of planning to do in your shop, and then how people can get a hold of you, reach you, come by and see you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so our next joint project, hopefully, is we're planning to do a full commercial installation in our showroom. Of both types of speakers, both pendant and kind of the surface mount, more corner mount style speakers, so that we can actually let those customers come and hear what that might sound like. I mean, because we've got a wide open showroom, we're kind of uniquely positioned to be more like the space they're building out than almost any other hi-fi shop, and so. Our hope is that this becomes the place that if people are thinking about a serious Bluesound installation, that if they're not local, that they'll fly out and we can help them plan that system right here in the space.
Denver's not a bad city to come and take a visit.
Denver's not. Yeah, everybody wants to come to Denver, especially in the winter. It's not bad in the summer either. This is a great market.
I enjoy Denver every time we go there. It doesn't matter the time of day. Well, next time,
it's the land of milk and honey.
For sure. Next time on the podcast, we'll talk about, let's see, Formula One, sim cars, sailing, maybe some mountain sports. But I really appreciate you coming on. We'll look forward to the next projects and future. Definitely the showroom. That'll be fun, and we'll keep growing from there.
Well, I appreciate it, Greg.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, guys.